The courtroom tensed. You could feel it as the heavy door groaned open and Justin Bieber walked in. No cameras were allowed, but it didn't matter. Everyone there knew this moment would echo far beyond the four walls they sat inside. He wasn't in a suit like the lawyers or the officials. Just a black jacket, draped over a plain white t-shirt. Clean, honest, worn, his eyes distant, his walk steady. This wasn't a pop star making an entrance. This was a witness coming to unburden himself. He approached the stand, raised his right hand. Sworn in, state your name for the record, the attorney said. Justin Drew Bieber, he replied. The judge nodded, and with that, it began. Mr. Bieber, how do you know Mr. Combs? Justin paused, not because he didn't remember, but because some memories bury themselves deep. I met him when I was 15. I was a kid. He was already Diddy, he said. There was a brief silence. He reached out, said he believed in me, that he could help make me more than just another singer. He called it mentorship. He exhaled slowly. Back then, I thought it was the biggest break of my life. He looked down for a second, then back up, but it came with a cost. The prosecutor leaned forward slightly. What kind of cost? Justin's. Stare hardened. It started small. Invitations, events, studio nights, then the parties started, private ones. Always off-grid, no press, no cameras, no phones. He gave a dry, ironic smile. He used to say, real moments don't need recordings. Now I understand what that really meant was. No proof. He shifted in his seat, rubbing his palms against the denim of his jeans. I remember the first time something felt off. I was 16. There were girls there, some my age, some maybe even younger. Diddy had this way of making it all feel okay. He'd smile, offer a drink. Say, this is how legends are made. His voice lowered, but it didn't feel right. Like we were part of something we didn't understand yet. He turned his head slightly, making eye contact with a few jurors. And it wasn't just me. There were other boys too, young artists. We were excited, naive. We didn't see it for what it was not until it was too late. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss stories like this. Now, back to it. Justin's voice returned, quieter now. There was one night in Miami. I was still just a teenager. Diddy flew me in last minute. Said it was about business. When I arrived, it was just him, 2 guys from his crew, and 5 girls I'd never seen before. He shook his head. He introduced them by first names only, said they were fans. But they didn't act like fans. They were nervous. Barely said anything. One of them ... she looked like she didn't even want to be there. He took a breath. I tried making small talk, but Diddy kept circling back to my image. Said the world needed to see me as a man. Then his expression changed, colder now, and then he handed me a drink, pointed at one of the girls and said, "She's yours. Tonight, don't embarrass me." Justin's throat tightened. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't mentorship. It was grooming. We weren't guests. We were props, and the girls, they weren't fans. They were transactions. He closed his eyes for a brief second. I didn't walk out. I didn't speak up. I was scared. I thought if I didn't go along with it ... I'd lose everything I'd worked for. He clenched the edge of the stand, so I stayed. I smiled. I said nothing. The silence in the room was deafening. Every eye was on him. I've carried that silence for years, he said, his voice cracking slightly. And every time I hear another name, another victim, I wonder, would things have been different if I'd spoken sooner? He swallowed hard. This is my truth, and this is me ... Finally saying it out loud, and in that moment, the courtroom shifted. It didn't make a sound. But it listened, like it finally understood. Justin gripped the stand tighter, like anchoring himself to the present. His voice had slowed, thick with weight. They used to call it access, he said. Being near Diddy meant you'd made it. That's how it worked. You weren't famous. Until he said you were. He looked down, then up again, but every invite came with a test. Could you keep secrets? Could you follow rules? Could you stay loyal? The word loyal sat in the air like a riddle. The prosecutor moved closer. What kind of rules? Justin nodded slowly. You didn't ask questions. If a girl cried, you looked the other way. If someone passed out, you didn't call for help. His team handled it. Fast, quiet. If anyone pulled out a phone, they were gone. If someone raised their voice, they were pulled aside. If anyone tried to leave, someone always stopped them. He leaned into the mic. It wasn't a party. It was a controlled environment. A trap that looked like freedom. A breath caught in the room. There was this one guy, Justin said. Another artist, young like me. We were in Diddy's backyard. He turned to me and said, single quotes, man, ... Don't you ever feel weird about all this? Justin gave a sad smile. I laughed it off. Didn't want to face it, but he looked me in the eye and said, this ain't mentorship, bro. It's training. That word echoed, training ... Like we were being molded, not for success, but for obedience. The judge scribbled quietly. The court reporter's fingers didn't pause. I started noticing patterns. Justin said, same girls, different cities, never introduced, just passed around. And when they came back ... months later, they were different, quieter, emptier. I remember one girl. I think her name was Nia. Justin's voice hovered in the air, soft but full of weight. She was different at first, full of light, energy, like she didn't know how to dim herself. But the next time I saw her, he stopped, jaw tightening. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. He looked toward the ceiling like trying to hold back a storm. Diddy brushed it off. Said she was just tired, but I've seen tired. That wasn't it. He paused. That was trauma. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was deliberate, heavy. I tried to pull away, he said, voice lower now. I really did. But Diddy didn't take distance lightly. He shifted. He'd have people call me, check in, tell my management he missed me, said I should come around. One time, when I didn't show for a trip, he told Scooter, tell your boy not to get ungrateful. Justin gave a bitter smile. It sounded like charm, but underneath it, that was a warning. Then he turned directly to the jury. He made you feel like you owed him, like every hit, every stage, every cheer ... It all existed because of him. And if you turned your back, he could erase it all. He swallowed. For a long time, I believed that. Thought I needed him to stay on top, but the truth is, he pushed me deeper into a version of myself I didn't recognize. His voice cracked slightly. My relationships suffered. My mind spiraled. I was surrounded by people, but I was alone. The room hung on his every word. There were nights I couldn't sleep, he said. Nights I'd lie in bed replaying those parties over and over, wondering ... What if I had said something? What if I'd left with that girl instead of staying silent? What if I had told someone, told the world, what was really going on inside those mansions? He stopped. I didn't speak then. His eyes locked onto the prosecutor. But I'm speaking now. And just like that, it began to lift. The weight of his silence, word by word, truth by truth. I used to tell myself it wasn't my place, he said, voice worn but unwavering. That I was too young to know what I was seeing. That maybe ... maybe it was just how things worked in the industry. A breath. But those were just lies I told myself so I could sleep at night. He leaned forward. When I look back now, I see it clearly. I saw it. I was part of it. I just didn't have the strength to say what it was. Another pause. Then, let me take you to one night in LA, a party at Diddy's mansion. I'd been there before, but this one. Something was different. Bigger crowd, more security. They took our phones at the gate, said it was for privacy, but inside, it felt like another world. Everything glowed, liquor poured. Girls dressed like they'd walked out of a fantasy. Barely old enough to drive, his voice dropped. It was flashy, beautiful, but underneath, it was rotten. He swallowed. That night, I saw one of Diddy's assistants lead a girl into a room. She didn't smile, she looked scared, kept looking back over her shoulder. He shook his head. I asked someone who she was. They said she's handled. He exhaled hard. That word stuck with me. Handled. His voice faltered. The worst part? We were trained to ignore it, not just by Diddy, by everyone. Around him, his crew, producers, celebs, influencers who built careers just by being near him. He looked up again. No one asked questions. Because if you asked too many ... you didn't get invited back. He let the weight of that sit, and in this industry, not getting invited means disappearing. He looked at the judge, then the jury. There were nights I went home and felt sick. Not from the booze, from guilt. I knew the difference between fun and abuse. I just didn't want to admit I'd watched the second one. Over and over again, he looked down at his hands. There was a girl, Amber, I think. She came up to me once, at one of those parties, said she didn't feel safe, asked if I could help her leave. He blinked hard. I told her to wait, said I'd get someone. When I came back, she was gone. A beat. Diddy told me she left, said she got tired. I never saw her again. Justin's eyes were wet now, but steady. I've carried that moment for years, told myself I didn't know enough to step in. But that was a lie. His voice sharpened. I knew exactly what was going on. I just didn't want to be the first one to say it out loud. He leaned closer to the mic, but if I don't say it now, I'll never forgive myself. The prosecutor stepped in. Mr. Bieber, are you saying you witnessed behavior that, in your opinion, was criminal? Justin nodded. I'm saying I saw girls too young to be there, passed around like party favors. I saw fear. I saw people afraid to say no. I watched Diddy manipulate every person in that room. He made them feel chosen, special, safe. But behind the scenes, he pulled the strings like a puppeteer. The room was still. I've seen girls leave those parties with fear in their eyes. I've seen other artists try to speak and vanish overnight. I've seen staff forced to sign NDAs just to keep their jobs. He looked straight at the jury. He made all of it look normal. But it wasn't. It was strategic. It was a system. And I was too scared to say it then. But I'm not scared anymore. The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was sacred. Justin took a long breath, and then he continued, voice calm but more resolved. There's something the public doesn't understand, he said. Fame doesn't just light you up, it traps you. You start thinking silence is safety, that if you just stay quiet, nothing bad will touch you. That if you pretend not to see it, it's not your problem. He looked around again, but pretending doesn't protect anyone. A pause. It only protects the predator. His hands trembled slightly now. There was a time I thought Diddy was just ... extra controlling, intense, but then I noticed the patterns. His voice turned sharp. The same names, same girls. Always young, always flattered, always alone, and always promised something. He let that sink in. It wasn't random. It was a system, a method, built on silence. You give them access. Flatter them, separate them, then you control them. He looked down, took a breath. There was this one producer. He told me once, don't ask too many questions at Diddy's parties. You won't like the answers. Justin gave a hollow laugh. I laughed too. But it stuck with me. Because deep down, I already knew, and worse, I knew he was right. Justin shifted in his seat, no longer fidgeting, no longer uncertain. Something had changed. He was steady now, resolute. I remember another night, he said, his voice low. New York. I was told it was just an industry dinner. He gave a slow blink. I walked into the hotel suite expecting food, conversation, normal stuff. Diddy was there. A few executives, some models, a beat. There were trays of untouched food. Booze flowing like a waterfall, and the girls ... They weren't eating. They were just waiting. For what? I couldn't tell you, but their eyes said enough. Something was off. He leaned forward slightly. I tried to leave early, just slip out. But someone from Diddy's team followed me into the hallway, said Diddy. Hoped I'd stick around for after hours. Justin's jaw tightened. I told him I had other plans. He smiled like it was nothing and said ... Don't be that guy. You know how this works. He paused, and in that moment, I knew I wasn't just being watched for loyalty. I was being monitored for obedience. His eyes narrowed. That night never left me. It was the first time I felt truly unsafe. Not physically, morally. Because if I stayed, I was part of it, and if I left, I was a liability. He looked around the room, at the jury, the judge, the court reporter. That's how Diddy kept people in line. Not with fists, with favors. With fear, masked as friendship. He clenched his jaw. The worst part? He didn't act like he was doing anything wrong. He smiled. He joked. Justin shook his head, voice tinged with disbelief. He made you feel chosen. Like the rules didn't apply anymore. Like we were part of something elite. But what he was really doing ... was teaching us to ignore red flags ... to confuse manipulation with mentorship ... to see victims as threats, not people. His voice cracked slightly, and I let it happen. Again and again, because I thought that's just how it worked. I stayed quiet to survive. He steadied himself. But now I know staying quiet is exactly how it survives. He looked down, then back up. I've spent years wondering if I'd spoken sooner, would it have changed anything? Would someone like Camila ... or Nya? Or Amber have been spared whatever they went through? He exhaled hard. That's what keeps me up. Not what I saw, but what I didn't stop. The courtroom felt like it wasn't breathing. That's why I'm here, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Not because I want to be, because I should have been a long time ago. He leaned back slowly in the chair, not out of relief, but in preparation. There was more to say. Harder truths ahead. Justin shifted his posture like someone bracing for impact. There's this myth, he said, that if you're famous, you're powerful. That being on stage, having fans, money, means you're in control. He looked down, but for a long time, I wasn't. His voice dropped. I was a puppet. And Diddy, he held the strings. You could feel it in the room. Everyone knew what was coming wasn't going to be softened. I want to talk about fear, he said, because that's what Diddy traded in. Fear was his currency. He paused. He never threatened me outright. He didn't need to. It was in the glances. The silence, the way people disappeared after crossing him. Justin looked at the prosecutor. I saw it. Producers blackballed. Jay's cut from tour overnight. There was this one friend of mine. He tried to speak up about a girl locked in a bathroom. She was crying out the next week. His label dropped him. Just like that. Justin shook his head. I asked around. No one talked. Just said he messed with the wrong guy. That was the message. Don't make noise. In Diddy's world, you play along or you disappear. He leaned into the mic, but fear wasn't the worst part. It was guilt. The room leaned in, the guilt that came after the parties. After the lights went out and I was left alone with my thoughts. He exhaled. I'd lie awake wondering who those girls were. What happened after the music stopped? I'd see the fake laughs, the glances, the deals made without words, and I hated myself for letting it keep happening. His voice cracked again. Not performance, release. You want to know what really broke me? He looked up, glassy-eyed. It wasn't what Diddy did to me, it was what he did around me, and how I stood there and watched. The prosecutor gave him space. But Justin didn't stop. There was this night in Vegas, he said. Charity event on the surface, but backstage, it was something else. He blinked slowly. Models flown in, rooms booked under fake names. Diddy walked in like he owned it all, and everyone fell in line. Then his tone shifted, heavy. There was this one girl, couldn't have been more than 19, standing in a hallway, crying, asking for her phone. He clenched the stand. I asked one of the guards what was going on. He just shrugged, said, "She's being dramatic. Don't worry about it." Justin's voice dropped. I did nothing. A beat. Told myself it wasn't my place. His knuckles turned white around the wood. That moment haunts me, because she looked at me, right at me, and I looked away. He inhaled sharply. I was scared. Scared of what helping her might cost me, but I was Justin Bieber, wasn't I? I had a voice. I had reach, and I used none of it. He looked down. I failed her, and I failed myself. The room was silent, but thick with something real. Shame, anger, sadness. A collective realization that this wasn't testimony. This was a confession. I used to wonder, why did he pick me? Justin said, his voice low. Why he paid so much attention to a kid from Canada with a couple of songs online. He paused. Now I know. He saw someone desperate to belong, too young to ask questions, easy to shape. He nodded slightly, and for years, I let him shape me into something I'm not proud of. He steadied his breath. But I'm done with silence. I'm done protecting the illusion. Justin looked up. His eyes were rimmed with red, but they were sharp now. I came here to say what I should have said 10 years ago. Not just for me, for everyone still stuck in the silence. And in that moment, Justin wasn't just a witness. He was a warning, a reckoning, and a mirror reflecting the true cost of staying quiet in a world built on fear and power. Justin dropped his gaze, then lifted it, his eyes locking directly onto the jury. Most people think the worst part of this was the parties, he said. The girls, the manipulation, but for me, the real nightmare began after I tried to walk away. His spine straightened as he spoke, voice firm, controlled. The industry doesn't let you leave quietly. Not when you've seen what I've seen. He paused, letting it settle. I started to pull back, stopped showing up to Diddy's events, stopped answering texts, started saying no. And that's when it started. His jaw clenched. The tone changed. Friendly messages turned cold. Opportunities that had been greenlit suddenly vanished. Projects I was set to lead got delayed, then canceled. A shadow passed over his face. Doors that used to swing open started closing, silently, without warning. The room was still, but Justin's voice moved through it like a warning, and then the whispers started. People saying I'd lost it, that I was unstable, to religious, to emotional, to erratic. His eyes narrowed. It wasn't random. It was targeted. A quiet, but strategic tear down of my reputation. He exhaled. I see it clearly now. This was the price of stepping away from Diddy's world. You didn't just lose a connection. You became a liability. His tone darkened, and the machine around him. It wasn't built to protect the innocent. It was built to protect him and punish you. He leaned in slightly. You know what it feels like to be gaslit by an entire industry. To have people you trusted look at you like you're insane for asking questions. Like you imagined what you saw. Justin's hands tightened around the edge of the stand. I started to believe it, started questioning my own memory. He closed his eyes for a moment. It took years. Therapy. Long talks with people outside the business. Honest conversations with Haley. I had to unlearn so much just to see the truth again. He opened his eyes, sharp now, because they don't just traumatize you. They train you to see abuse as normal. To call it networking. To say, that's just how it is. He leaned toward the mic again, but that's not how it should be. He looked straight ahead, expression unreadable. You want to know how many people told me not to come here today? To many agents, publicists, even friends, he inhaled. They said, think of your career. Don't get involved. It's too messy, too dangerous. Justin's voice was steady, but the real danger is this idea that silence is safer than the truth. He let that sentence hang in the air like fog. There are still people protecting Diddy, people pretending they didn't see what they saw. A pause. Some of them are powerful. Some of them are beloved by millions. His voice grew stronger, but just because someone sells out stadiums doesn't make them innocent. He turned slightly, and to the ones still hiding behind silence, I want to say something. I was you. His tone softened, but only slightly. I get it. The fear, the shame, the fog of confusion. But every day you stay quiet, his world keeps spinning, and someone else pays for it. He swallowed hard. That scared version of me, the one too afraid to speak, he's gone. I buried him, and I'm not digging him back up. He looked around the room once more. This isn't about revenge. It's not about cancellation. He paused, then spoke with clarity. It's about truth. Saying it loud enough that people still stuck in that darkness know they're not crazy. They're not alone, and they're not wrong for wanting out. Then Justin slowly leaned back, his face unreadable, but his truth irreversible. The silence wasn't emptiness. It was the sound of a mask ripping off an empire. And for the first time in a decade, Justin Bieber looked like he could finally breathe. He leaned forward again, resting his arms on the stand. This time, his tone wasn't just sad. It carried something heavier. Anger sharpened by years of silence. There's something I've never said publicly, he began. Not in interviews, not in lyrics, not even to people close to me. He looked down because it always felt a dark. To real, but it's what changed everything for me. A long pause. 2014, he said. I was 19. We were in New York. Fashion Week had just wrapped. Diddy was hosting something he called a VIP reset, whatever that meant. His voice lowered. If you've been to one, you know. It wasn't just a party. He took a breath. I wasn't alone that night. 3 other young artists were there. 2 of them brand new to the scene. Still bright-eyed, still hungry. Justin's voice turned brittle. Diddy said he wanted us to see the real world. He used to say that a lot, like we were being initiated into something special. His next words came slowly, but it wasn't special. It was dark. Ugly. And very, very real. He stopped to collect himself. We walked into this penthouse suite, and immediately, something was off. Girls were already there. Young. Too young. Some looked fresh out of high school. His voice dropped. Dressed in designer stuff they clearly didn't own. Smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Phones were taken. Windows blacked out. No music. Just that sickening quiet that hums right before something goes wrong. His hands began to tremble. One girl, I'll never forget this, grabbed my wrist. Didn't say a word. Just looked at me. Begged me with her eyes to do something. Anything. He went still. I froze. The courtroom was silent. Suspended. Diddy walked in maybe 15 minutes later. Same confidence. Same grin. Looked around like he was surveying merchandise. Justin swallowed. Then he smiled at us. At me. And said, this is what power looks like. This is what it means to be at the Top. A long pause. Then he started calling people into the other rooms, separating them. Justin's voice cracked, but he pushed through. He looked at me and said, "You'll thank me for this one day," then nodded at one of the girls, tiny, scared, and said, "Take her. Go relax," like she was a prize. Justin's next. Words came with effort. I didn't move. I just stood there. He smiled, said, "You'll learn. You're still soft," then walked away. No one moved, not even the court reporter. I told the guard I needed air. Justin said, "I left. Ran. Never went back, but I never spoke about it either." He looked down because I was terrified, then lifted his head again. And that's what I regret most. One more time, Justin leaned into the mic. Not out of habit, but out of purpose. "I'm here today because I refuse to be part of that system anymore." His words didn't shout, they struck. I won't protect someone who built an empire from the wreckage of other people's pain. He paused. I owe that to the girl in the elevator. To every girl. To every artist who stayed quiet because they were scared. And to the version of me who kept his head down for way too long. And just like that, the weight shifted. It wasn't the judge's gavel that hit. It was the sound of a man choosing truth over silence. Justin leaned back slightly, but his eyes, they never wavered. Never left the jury. The burn of everything he had buried for years wasn't fading. It had sharpened. "You know what haunts me the most?" he asked, his voice soft, barely above a whisper. "It's not just what I saw. It's realizing that Diddy didn't hide the darkness. He marketed it. A beat. He wore it like confidence. He called it the price of success." Justin shook his head slowly. "There were nights I'd hear other artists joke about it. Diddy's parties, man, they're wild. But the laughter, he said, wasn't joy. It was a warning disguised as a joke. A warning wrapped in denial." He inhaled, and I laughed too, because if I didn't, I'd have to admit I was standing in the middle of something awful. Justin turned briefly to the judge, then back to the courtroom. You start wondering, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm the problem. He looked around because everyone else is smiling, clapping him on the back, calling him a genius. So maybe I was just being sensitive. He gritted his jaw, but now I know the discomfort I felt. It was the only honest thing in the room. The prosecutor stood silent. He didn't interrupt. He knew this wasn't testimony. It was exorcism. There was a moment, Justin said, years after I stopped showing up. I was married, sober, trying to rebuild myself. He paused, and I watched this interview. Diddy was on stage telling some story about a party. The audience was roaring with laughter. Justin blinked slowly, but I remembered that night because I was there, his hands pressed into the wood of the witness stand. And the version he told, it erased everything. The fear, the tears, the silence. His voice lowered. He turned trauma into a punchline. The courtroom didn't move, and that's when it hit me. Justin said, he wasn't just protecting himself with silence. He was rewriting history. He leaned in, but here's the thing about history. It fights back. The truth. It always finds a crack in the lie. He looked around. This courtroom, this moment, this is that crack. He let the silence ride before continuing. I remember being in the studio with him once, probably 2013. He looked at me and said, "You've got it, kid. Don't screw it up. The world's watching now." Justin exhaled. I thought that meant I was chosen, that I was special. But what he really meant was, keep your mouth shut. Don't question me. He leaned back slightly, a shadow crossing his face. That sentence stayed with me for years. The world's watching. He glanced toward the cameras, the media, the public. And now, he was right. The world is watching, but not his version. Not the press interviews. Not the filtered Instagram captions. This. His voice dropped to a whisper. This moment. This truth. Justin turned his gaze back to the judge, then to the gallery, and finally back to the jury. His voice was calmer now, but carved from stone. I'm not here to destroy someone's career. I'm here to speak for the ones who never got the chance to have one. The girls who didn't get out. The artists who never made it. The lives chewed up by a machine and thrown away when they stopped being useful. Stillness gripped the room. I've held this inside for too long, he said. Let it twist me. Break me. Define me. A long pause. But I won't carry his secrets anymore. I won't be a chapter in his story. I'll write my own. He closed his eyes just for a second, and when they opened, he looked lighter, freer. I used to think the worst thing that could happen to me was losing everything I'd built. The fans, the fame, the image. He shook his head, but the real worst thing would have been living the rest of my life knowing I stayed silent when it mattered most. The quiet in the courtroom wasn't absence, it was sacred. I know people will say I should have spoken sooner, he added. And they're right, he didn't flinch. But when you grow up in a system of fear and reward, you don't even realize how deep the programming runs until you try to leave it. He paused. Every time I got close to telling the truth, someone reminded me what I could lose. And I listened, until now. A breath in, a breath out. This trial isn't just about what Diddy did to those girls or to the artists he used. His voice was firm. It's about power, how it rots, how fame can be weaponized, and how silence, collective silence, is the deadliest thing of all. He turned toward the press bench, to the cameras, to the reporters who'd once turned a blind eye. You're not innocent. You glamorized him, made him untouchable, buried the stories, called them rumors, swept them under red carpets. Then finally, he turned to Diddy, seated, still, watching, and you. I see you now, not as a legend, not as an icon, but as a man who built his kingdom from broken lives and blind loyalty. His words landed like stone. I won't give you my silence anymore. He turned back to the jury. This trial won't undo the past, won't erase the memories I still wake up from, won't bring back the girls who disappeared into his world and never came out. A hush swept over the courtroom, but maybe, just maybe, it'll stop the next version of him from being born. He looked out one last time. I've had everything, money, fame, platinum plaques, but none of it mattered when I couldn't look in the mirror. He nodded, slow and certain, because truth follows you, and when you run from it long enough, it becomes your prison. A pause. I'm not running anymore. His gaze scanned the room once before settling on the judge. That's all I have to say. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was holy, a space cleared by truth. And as Justin stepped down, the room didn't cheer, didn't clap, it simply watched, because they all knew they had just witnessed something irreversible. The unmasking of a culture, the fall of a king, and the rise of a voice that refused to stay silent any longer.